Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Daniel Ishak Krestiyanto, and today I will be taking the stance of the opposition against the motion of decriminalizing victimless crimes. So, first of all, the belief that victimless crime only affects the actors of these crimes is inherently wrong. These crimes not only affect the offender or actor, but their friends and family around them. Drug use and gambling, for example, will make the offenders of these beg for money from their friends and family. If they don't give enough money to continue the addictions of these actors or offenders, they will be threatened or even stolen from, or even the offenders or actors of these will take their emotions hostage and threaten suicide. Now, the reason why these actors are incarcerated in the first place is not because of the use of drugs or gambling, but because of the crimes that are associated with them. When someone runs out of money to continue their drug or gambling addiction, they will get desperate. They will even threaten their friends or families with suicide to get what they want, as I've said before, or maybe even they will turn to theft and robbery. If you decriminalize these victimless crimes, will you decriminalize the real crimes which are associated with them as the driving force of such as theft and robbery? If you do, where's the limit? Will you decriminalize murder just because they were high from drugs and incapable of understanding their own actions? Decriminalizing victimless crime doesn't solve anything in society. Oftentimes, charges for drug use, gambling, and prostitution are already overlooked because we, as a society, understand the bitter taste of life and why the actor of such do it. What we don't and will never look, however, is the crimes that follow these victimless crimes. Second of all, decriminalizing these victimless crimes will only worsen things. The basic definition of decriminalization is not making these activities a criminal offense, right? In the eyes of the common people, how is it different from legalizing them? While in the eyes of the law, decriminalization is different from legalization, yes. However, in the eyes of society, they are the same exact thing. By decriminalizing victimless crimes, society believes that the government is allowing drug use, gambling, and prostitution to run free and will subsequently lead to many, many more offenses of such because of that belief held by society and people as a whole is that doing these is fine and is therefore allowed by the government. People who are previously on the edge of doing it but is being consistently held back by the fear of legal repercussions will no longer have to worry and will do it with reckless abandon. This is why criminalization of victimless crimes should be kept up, since the intervention of these victimless crimes doesn't necessitate decriminalization. Not only that, but criminalization of victimless crimes can be done without jail time. This has been the case for many minor offenses such as driving under the influence or DUIs. The entire concept of prison and criminalization is a flexible one. It is not as stagnant as many people think. Why can't rehabilitation be done in prison? Well, it can. It is possible to separate those with victimless crimes than those that commit serious crime. And in these separated prisons, rehabilitation centers can be built directly into them. Because if you let these offenders roam free, they will succumb to their desires and addictions and reoffend. But in prison, they will be forcibly abstinated from even the possibility of reoffending. And because they are under the ever so watchful eye of the government, they can follow through with their rehabilitation program. Or, if they prove to be cooperative, these offenders can be coerced to do the rehabilitation in an outside facility with minimal overwatch, but still with the coercion of correctional officers or the like. Also in these facilities, there are other offenders who are in the same boat as them. A reason why people turn to things such as gambling, drug use, and prostitution is because of the lack of social groups and overall loneliness. With the other people in rehabilitation facilities or in the prison itself, they can form the necessary social groups to help them quit these victimless crimes altogether. Third of all, what was it that was said about drugs, gambling, and victimless crime in general? That they were an escape from the horrors of life? No, that's just plain wrong. There are many alternatives to drugs and gambling which are beneficial to life and give good amounts of dopamine. Why not take up hobbies that will help their livelihood, such as fishing or crafts? These hobbies can then be turned into jobs and could be a source of income for them. Another thing that was said is that drugs and gambling are a result of losing at the lottery of life and ending up poor. But to able to taste drugs, gambling, and prostitution in the first place, you need to have the necessary amount of funds, and that amount is often quite sizable and thus impossible for those who are in poverty to even experience. The reason why people fall to the clutches of drugs and gambling in the first place is because of the inability of the government to crack down on drug dealers and websites that enable gambling, as well as brothels and similar stuff like that. So what we should do and what the government should do is instead increase the crackdowns and punishment for those who distribute drugs and things such as gambling. Lastly, as for how society views these offenders or of victimless crime, the government should socialize to people more about how these offenders are no danger and that they just need help and to acclimate back into society. And to start with, they can perhaps be put in a workplace that is exclusively made up of prior offenders before being able to go into normal work, or perhaps this workplace can be integrated directly into the rehabilitation facilities or prisons or into the rehabilitation process itself. So, in summary, first, the main reason why offenders of victimless crimes are jailed is often not the victimless crime itself, but the crimes associated with them, and is why decriminalizing victimless crime will not yield anything. Second, society sees decriminalization as legalization, and it will just cause more offenses regarding victimless crime exponentially rise. Meanwhile, criminalization can be done without jail time. Third of all, people in poverty can't even taste drugs or try gambling, and what the government should focus on instead should be the distributors, not the users. And lastly, the government should instead put their focus in combating the public stigma of accepting prior offenders back into society instead of just punishing them. Thank you.